Well, it was a struggle. It was a struggle. But it looks like I'm here. Ah, 18 minutes late for those of you who are watching live on Facebook at 7:18 p.m. on a Wednesday evening here in beautiful North Carolina. For those of you watching the rerun on YouTube, it doesn't matter. It could be any time of the day. It could be any time of the night. You'd be watching no matter what. But as I speak these words live, man, I am just ready. I have come in the past 45 minutes of my life, actually make that 48 minutes of my life, come so close to just swearing off of technology in any way, shape, or form. The hoops I've had to jump through in order just to get on live this week. You wouldn't believe it. Chrissy Walker signed in saying punctual. Well, listen to this, pissy Chrissy. Mevo, you've heard me talk about Mevo a lot on Tent Talks Tunes. And it always comes down to the same thing. Their camera is great. Their microphone is great. Their software is, pardon my language, shit. It is the worst piece of garbage streaming software I've ever subjected myself to. And if I hadn't spent so much money on it, I would have taken a hammer to the camera and mailed the pieces to Mevo, Logitech Mevo Incorporated, as a token of my extreme disesteem for them. 48 minutes I spent trying to update the software, update the firmware, trying to allow access to Facebook from my phone. It just wouldn't work. Nothing would work. Logitech Mevo is the name of the streaming software and camera that I attempted to use. And after 40-something minutes, I just gave up because it wasn't working. It simply was not working. That includes installing and uninstalling. That includes updating the firmware. That includes changing browsers. That includes every single fix you could possibly come up with to make the fucking thing work. And it just wouldn't work. I would turn on Logitech Mevo. It would start to log on. Then it would redirect me to a Facebook page, which I would have to log on to, which I would do, and then it would just leave me on Facebook. I couldn't go back to Mevo. I was just chasing my tail, and finally I dug out my cheap $50 camera and stuck it on top of my screen and hooked it up, and then my browser wouldn't let me have access to the camera. So I had to switch to another browser that I haven't used in years. And now here I am. Here I am, because Tent Talks Tunes will not be defeated. I will not be defeated. If I say I'm going to go live, I'm going to go live. And if it takes me being late by 18 or 20 minutes, well, then that's what it takes. Sorry, guys, but I did it. I'm here. You hear what I'm saying, Chrissy? You hear what I'm saying, Alan? You hear what I'm saying, Mike? Yes, Mike Lester says it's time to open the window and yell at you through a megaphone. Telling you, the old technology does not fail like the new technology. That is a damn fact. You can take a wax cylinder record manufactured in 1877 and play it on a wax cylinder player. You can take any phonograph record made any time in the last 70 years and play it on a record player. No problem. You try to use the same software and streaming equipment that you use every single week, that like I have for the past 5 years, you try to use it and it just won't work. It's well enough to make you want to grab a megaphone and yell out your window or listen to cassettes for the rest of your life, because they work. Dan Lott says landline party. Yeah, seriously, give me that dial-up connection. I miss the sound of that dial-up. Very cool retro future modernist sound that it used to make every time you logged into the internet. God damn. See, I'm a little bit hot right now. I'm a little bit steamed. I don't think any jury would convict me. So there you go. That's my rant. That's why I'm late. Apologies to anybody watching on my YouTube channel. YouTube, which by now, if you haven't liked and subscribed, you really should. Because that means nothing to you. That's just what I have had to go through to bring this to you on YouTube. Opening rant done. Done. Let's check the bulletin board and let's talk tunes, shall we? Because I try not to dwell in the past, even though the past is where the technology that works lives. Try not to dwell there. I try to be in the present and the future. And the future is coming right up. There's a piece of technology that failed. The blue sticky glob that holds the flyer to the backdrop. That just failed. But luckily that's a quick, easy fix. See? Just like that. Fixed. Problem solved. If you want to see me in a good mood and in a punctual fashion, come on down to Gastonia, North Carolina this Saturday. Yes, this coming Saturday to the Gastonia Conference Center. That is where Carolina Sound, in conjunction with WSGE, is holding a big old record show. And I am making my debut as a North Carolina record seller at said event. Yes, it's the Carolina Sound Music and Record Expo. I will be there with not one, but two tables, groaning under the weight of all the cool stuff I'm going to have. I'm talking about choice, carefully hand-selected vinyl. That's LPs and 7-inchers, used and new. We're talking about boxes of quality used, quality used compact discs. $5 a throw, no thrift shop filler, no junk. All killer, all good. And the complete line of TPOS product. Stuff that appears on my fabulous label. And if you want to know exactly what it is I'll be packing, go to my Discogs, or go to my eBay, or go to my Bandcamp. And you'll get an idea of what I will have on my table in Gastonia this Saturday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., Gastonia Conference Center. Oh, yeah. For those of you who might want to travel a little bit and get in touch with your inner devolved selves, oh, yes, it happens every single year right around that time. It is the annual devotional Devo fan gathering at the Beachland Ballroom in wonderful Cleveland, Ohio. Friday and Saturday, October 10th and 11th of this year. I will be there, just sort of being a presence. Of course, I'll have a table of merch, which will be heavily Devo-centric. And I'm also very excited to announce that on Saturday, I will be performing on the big stage at the Beachland Ballroom with a super group. Excuse me again. A hand-curated, if you will, hand-selected group of musicians. Myself on rhythm guitar and occasional vocals. A fellow named Jeff Hardy from the great Akron band CD Truth on lead guitar and vocals. The immortal Poopy Necropond of Sockeye and many other bands on the bass guitar. Caroline, whose last name I just don't remember, but she is in the orbit of Poopy Necropond, playing the keyboards. And the man around whom the entire band is built, a fellow named David Kendrick. David Kendrick was the drummer for Sparks. I mean, y'all know Sparks. Sparks, during their classic new wave period, he played on Womp That Sucker. He played on Angst in My Pants. He played on the mega hit Cool Places and the album that was on, Sparks in Outer Space, plus several albums after that. After playing with Sparks, he moved on to Devo, which is why he's relevant to this particular event. He's currently the touring drummer for Shoo Shoo. That is Xiu, in case you were wondering. And he's also a very talented composer and writer himself. And we have a band called David Kendrick's Quentophrenia, featuring music from 5 of his bands. And we have been brainstorming and woodshedding a really cool hit-packed set to play on October 11th at the Devotional in Cleveland, Ohio. I don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss it. Brian Hugo has signed in. Hey, Brian. Pleasure hanging out with you this past weekend. Happy birthday. Thank you. My birthday was yesterday. Haha, 61 years on this planet. I will officially drink to 61 more. Let's hope that the video streaming technology improves between now and then. Adam Zister, greetings from the wilderness of Greater Atlanta. Good to see you. Good to have you on board. What else is happening? As if the devotional wasn't enough in October, how about the Brown Mountain Lights Festival, October 25th in Morganton, North Carolina? It's a long list of bands who are playing all day and all night, and guess what? Anti-Scene, that rockin' teenage combo of which I am the bass player, Anti-Scene on top. I don't know yet, I might be speaking out of turn, but I have a suspicion, I have a vague inkling that since the event is October 25th, which is very close to Halloween, and that since Anti-Scene have been specializing in heavy presentation sets lately, I have a suspicion that maybe we might have something cooked up for the Brown Mountain Lights Festival. Like I said, this is not an announcement. Nothing's been confirmed or even discussed. But I just have a feeling that maybe something like that will happen. And even if it doesn't, we're going to rock the hell out of you. So there you go. October 25th, downtown Morganton. It's for free. There's really not much not to like there. Brown Mountain Lights Festival, Morganton. And then after that, the Danbury Record and CD Expo, November 15th. The record show that I promote back in my old homeland of Connecticut. I'll be there with lots of swag, lots of personality, lots of what makes me, me. Which, of course, includes records for sale. What can I tell you? So that's the immediate future, as I understand it, and that you've just heard about on Tent Talks Tunes. All right, so no mail to speak of, so we're just going to get right down into the middle of it. If anybody wants to ameliorate that situation, there's my address, P.O. Box 173, Newton, North Carolina, 28658. Happiness is a full mailbox. And a happy mailbox makes for a happy, freshly minted, 61-year-old collector of stuff. A man who just can't help himself. Anyway, this guy, I just had this great weekend. You heard me talking a lot about Rule Breakers Ball, which occurred this past weekend in Spartanburg, South Carolina at the Ground Zero. It was a fantastic event. It was so much fun. So many great bands and so many really super cool people who traveled long distances to come see and partake in the ball. Excuse me. Every single band who played just nailed it. Everybody brought it. And I'm going to try to name all of them and give acknowledgments to everybody who played. That would include Taped Fist, Knowledge is for Fools, Sweet Georgia Brown, Josephus and the George Jonestown Massacre, Rancid Vat, Future Hate. You'd really think I had it memorized by now. Of course, the almighty Anti-Scene, Self-Made Monsters. I know I'm forgetting two. Well, I did pretty good. I just named 80% of the awesome bands who played. Greg Crawford says, how about that Knowledge is for Fools intro? Yes. The guy who did the introduction for Knowledge is for Fools on stage certainly did a fine job, I think. And then had a record smashed over his head for his rewards. Oy. Showbiz can be brutal sometimes, but it is worth it. It is always worth it. Chrissy, Wrath of Typhon played. Oh, Wrath of Typhon. It was Wrath of Typhon's combination music, performance, and wrestling match between the Golden Goat, the Golden Nugget and the Silver Goat. That was cool. We, of course, had Mr. Number One, George South, legendary North Carolina-based wrestler. And as Chrissy reminded me, Before I Hang. from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Yes, thank you, Chrissy, for the assist. She was there. She's younger than I am. She's got a better memory than I do. There you go. 10 up, 10 down. 10 fantastic performers and a room full of really, really great people. Awesome. Thanks to everybody who came out. And we will do it again. We will definitely do it again. I don't know when, but it's somewhere, sometime, somehow, down the line, it's going to happen again. Oh, yes. So anyway, I did that this past weekend. And, of course, picked up some swag along the way. And I love to do the show and tell of the swag. Oh, yes. Dan Lott from Taped Fist is chiming in and says that he always enjoys those get-togethers. Always a great time with some of the best people around. Dang right, Dan Lott. You know it. And Taped Fist ripped it up. Very, very, very cool. Lots of great fun. Excuse me. You know, I'll tell you, this streaming problem that I had kind of discombobulated me. I was spending so much time trying to get the Verschluggener camera to work that I neglected to get my materials together. I got a whole bunch of really cool stuff. But then I have all this other cool stuff that I got in the mail and things that I treated myself to for my birthday. So you know what? We're just going to wing it. We're just going to go completely haphazard here. And I'm going to start showing some really interesting things that have crossed my desk lately and the stories behind them. Chris Iconicide says, Ground Zero. Could you not get a gig at Ground Zero, Chris? What's up? What happened? I don't know. It's always easier to talk about a gig than to land a gig. You know what I mean? You know what I mean. Anyway, before I ramble and rant and rave and rage and rail too much, it was indeed my birthday yesterday, and I went ahead and did what any good American does, and I treated myself to a couple of things for my birthday. I bought myself a birthday present. Yes, I bought myself a birthday present. The birthday present that I purchased was a gift pack of records from one of my favorite record stores, Armageddon Records, in Providence, Rhode Island, and or Boston, Massachusetts. They have 2 locations. And Ben from Drop Dead is the owner of both locations. Super cool guy, obviously Drop Dead. Super cool band. Always a pleasure to do business with Armageddon Records. And so there I was, just minding my own business, just like any other regular guy on Discogs. And I got a wild inkling to start looking up Tiny Tim Records. Yes, Tiny Tim. I have been on a bit of a jag lately relating to Tiny Tim. And you people have heard me talk about Tiny Tim. A lot of this was triggered by a certain recent key event for yours truly. And of course my label, TPOS. I recently released, and this is where the commercialization of Tent Talks Tunes comes in. I recently released a split 12-inch EP featuring the talents of Gigi Allen and Tiny Tim. Excuse me, I picked up a bit of a bug at the Rule Breakers Ball as well. Not a major one, but enough to get that familiar scratchy cough going. It's not as bad as the last one I got, let me tell you. Just ask you to bear with me. That's the front, and that's the back. 2 great tastes that taste great together. Gigi Allen and Tiny Tim, the beautifully ugly 12-inch single, available on, you guessed it, Discogs, eBay, and Bandcamp under my name, TPOS. In fact, let me get to a point where I'm not blocking the view of that fantastic little billboard I got going there. Dan Lott got one, and he says he really enjoyed it. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. Great fun putting it together. And, you know, as will happen, because of this record, I started getting into, you know, listening to some Gigi stuff and checking out some Tiny Tim. And as happens so often, I just really was reacquainted by how amazing Tiny Tim is. And, you know, at the risk of repeating myself, I'll say that it's very easy to write Tiny Tim off as a novelty act or a one-hit wonder. But the fact is that Tiny Tim was a real walking, talking, living encyclopedia of turn of the 20th century popular music, crooners, novelty music, novelty performers, pop singers, music that didn't really age well, but that didn't matter to him. He just absolutely loved the early crooners like Bing Crosby, Rudy Vallee, Russ Columbo, Irving Kaufman, Henry Burr, names that mean little or nothing to the modern day music consumer, but were huge in their time, like really big stars. And you got to remember, Tiny Tim was born in 1932, so these people were all still very much alive and active when he was a child. So these are the singers and the musicians that made the impression on him when he was young. And he just never, ever lost that. Even going into the 50s and the 60s, he had his biggest success in 1968, but he was still firmly rooted in the 30s tradition of crooners and pop singers. So, Walt Wheat says, rule breaker's bug. I'm telling you, man, Chrissy got it too. But we're still here. And we're not giving up. Yeah. No bug's going to wipe me out. See that? See that? Look at that. Yeah, Tent Talks Tunes is strong. So anyway, you got this guy, Tiny Tim, and besides being like a complete expert and just absolute devotee to that music, he was a legit weirdo. Legit weirdo. He had long hair like this back in the 50s when nobody, I repeat, nobody had long hair. You risked your life appearing in public having long hair like this. He wore pancake makeup all the time when nobody, males especially, I should say men, did not wear makeup at all, let alone pancake makeup. And because it's all because he was trying to be Rudolph Valentino. He saw one picture of Rudolph Valentino, who in one of his movie roles, and he was heavily made up with the pancake makeup, and he had like long locks of hair. And Tiny Tim said, "I'm going to look like that." So that's really his version of Rudolph Valentino. It's a look that he adopted and kept for his entire life. So this guy definitely did not play by the rules of so-called normality. He was absolutely on his own page at all times. And so I just love Tiny Tim because he's so legit and so authentic. And it's an absolute privilege and a joy to have him on my label. I just regret, and I'm not a man of many regrets. I have very, very few regrets in my life. But I do kind of regret that I wasn't aware of Tiny Tim when he was still alive, because I think I could have gotten many more years of appreciation out of him, and conceivably could have worked with him when he was alive, putting out releases or promoting concerts or something, because everything that I've learned about him was that he was extremely easy to work with, very approachable, and pretty much game for anything. So that's kind of the way I operate. All I do is ask people if they want to do something, and they either say yes or no. And if they say yes, we're a go. So I digress. My obsession is with his obsession. So Walt Wheat says, when did Tiny Tim shuffle off this mortal coil? 1996. Wow. That was almost 30 years ago. Jeez. Ugh, that's a lifetime. My God. Yes, 1996 at the age of 62. And that was another very strange trait of Tiny Tim's, is that he absolutely 100% willfully refused to take care of himself. He absolutely would not look after his health. In fact, he made a point to never, ever physically exert himself, to never, ever walk more than just a few blocks. I mean, it's amazing the guy lived as long as he did, really. It's a hell of a story. It's really, really worth looking into if you're fascinated by divergent personalities. Tiny Tim was about as divergent as it gets. Brother Dave Stennett, who was at the Rule Breakers Ball, said he's in a movie, a good, bad movie. Dave, are you talking about Blood Harvest, in which Tiny Tim plays Magnificent Mervo, the brain-damaged clown? Could that be it? Please let us know, Dave. Please let us know. Because I tried to watch that movie recently. Couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. Mainly because I'm not a horror movie guy. It's just not my style. I really don't dig horror movies. I'm just not into them. I'm not into splatter movies. It's just not my thing. So I was watching this movie just to see the part that Tiny Tim played, and I couldn't slog through all the horror movie elements just to get to the Tiny Tim parts. Maybe somebody somewhere will post a condensed version of Blood Harvest that's nothing but Tiny Tim scenes. That's a challenge for you people. I'm issuing it right here, right now, on Tent Talks Tunes. My old Florida compadre says Tiny Tim recorded at Black Star Studio in Miami, close to his passing. Really? James, what can you tell us about that? Were you a part of that? Don't tell me you played with Tiny Tim. Inquiring minds need to know. Please feel free to leave a comment or send me a message or something, because that's really intriguing. Tiny Tim left behind a huge volume, a giant, massive amount of recordings. You know, for a guy who had to take long showers 6 or 7 times a day and apply his pancake makeup every single time, it's amazing that he achieved what he did. You know, the literally thousands of recordings he left behind. You know, like each song being an individual recording. He recorded thousands of songs, and it's quite the body of work. So here I am obsessed with Tiny Tim, and so I did a little bit of shopping online. I let my fingers do the walking and came across a few Tiny Tim records I lacked. They all satisfied my main criterion for buying records, in that they were cheap, and I helped myself to a few. And I'm going to show and tell you some of them. A few 45 RPM singles, one of my favorite formats. So, nothing better than a 45. A 45, it's small, it's compact, it's got a great big hole. If you're going to put out a 45 RPM record, it's got to be good. There is no room for filler or dead space. It's got to be A and B. And so Tiny Tim released many 45s. Obviously, his hit was Tiptoe Through the Tulips. And the follow-up to that was Bring Back Those Rockabye Days, which is a pretty cool song. The B-side was This Is All I Ask, the traditional crooner song. Not a bad number, but I think it illustrates what the big problem with Tiny Tim was in terms of getting commercial acceptance. Here was this guy firmly rooted in a past era. He was in his mid-30s when he had his hits. He's singing a music that did not age well and was absolutely not popular with the younger set. So the hippies and the chirpies and the trippies and the freakies didn't want to hear this old-time Bing Crosby bullshit that their parents and grandparents liked. They didn't want to hear it. And the people of that generation didn't want to be sung to by a long-haired freak wearing a bunch of pancake makeup who they thought was a hippie. It's like he just wasn't, he was in a real no man's land. He just did not have the ability to super connect with either demographic. You know, I mean, Tiptoe Through the Tulips was a fluke, basically. It just happened to be the right song at the right time in the right place. So he did the follow-up, Bring Back Those Rockabye Days, or Rockabye Baby Days, which is just like a straightforward reading of the song in his natural tenor voice, no falsetto, and it just sounds like a 1930s song played and recorded in high fidelity. Nobody wanted it. He followed that up with a double-sided single that really helped tank his career. On one side, Don't Bite the Hand That Feeds You. On the other side, What Kind of American Are You? Tiny Tim was super patriotic. Tiny Tim was 100% pro-USA. He was pro-Vietnam. He had his political leanings, and he was very vocal and upfront about them, the same way he was very vocal and upfront about everything in his life. He had no secrets. But it's kind of the same problem, you know. The hippies and the chippies and the trippies and the flippies and the skippies, the younger crowd didn't want to hear What Kind of an American Are You? And the people who did want to hear it didn't want to hear it from a freak like Tiny Tim. So there you go. Double jeopardy. The record was released, and it sank like this. But I got mine, baby. White label promo. And somebody did take the time to listen to it. I don't know if you can read the handwritten notation, but somebody actually said that it's great. Unfortunately, it wasn't great enough to garner him very much in the way of airplay. This is a record that came out in Germany with a really cool picture sleeve of Tiny Tim in his lederhosen and alpine mountaineering gear, The Happy Wanderer. Now, I didn't know the song The Happy Wanderer, at least by title, until I played it the other night. Let's see, we got all kinds of comments here from James Rowe. James says that his band practiced at the studio that Tiny Tim recorded in, and he says that Tiny lived up to his imagination. See, there you go, authentic. Chris Iconicide saw him in New York City. Dave Sennett said, hey, did he not get married? Didn't he get married on Laugh-In or The Tonight Show? On The Tonight Show. Tiny Tim got married on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, providing the biggest television ratings in all history up until that very moment. So there you go. And Gary Forney says that he has a song on a compilation called Radio Jukebox with Tiny Tim. So Gary Forney. A lot of people out there had brushes with Tiny Tim, and dang it, if I had only known, maybe I could have had a brush too. Anyway, The Happy Wanderer. Now, James Rowe, being a Florida boy. Now, James, I think you were from Broward County, whereas I was from Dade. When I was a kid going to Dade County public schools, kindergarten through 6th grade, we'd all show up at school, be let into school, and, you know, go to homeroom, and, you know, there'd be announcements and the Pledge of Allegiance and the Star-Spangled Banner and all that. A moment of silent meditation, and after that, over the loudspeaker would come a really cornball voice from an old guy saying, and now there's music on the air. And they would play a song. And we would sit there and listen to the song and wait for the song to end and then get on with the day's classes. As I look back on it now, I think that maybe we were expected to sing along, but never in my entire career in Dade County Public Schools did I or anybody else ever sing along with those songs that they piped in. Mike Lesser, did they do that in Broward County schools? But actually, Mike, you're a Dade guy. No, Mike's got a Tiny Tim story too. Dang it. Mike Lesser, did you ever have to sit through There's Music on the Air when you were in grade school? They would always play the corniest songs in the world, the cornballest stuff. Kumbaya, my lord, kumbaya. I heard kumbaya so many times in my 6 years in Dade County Public Schools. Now, mind you, these segments sounded like they'd been recorded sometime in the 50s, and they never changed them. I started kindergarten in 1969 and got out of 6th grade in 1976. So they're playing these old recordings of these old guys singing these old songs that were already like 20 years old by the time I started kindergarten. Saying, Michael rowed the boat ashore, hallelujah. Michael rowed the boat ashore, hallelujah. And who did you see at the zoo? I saw a monkey at the zoo. He looked a lot like you. Now what you gonna do? Yes, I remember these songs. I remember them very well. I remember them very well. And one of them that I particularly disliked, that irritated me to no end, whereas if I were an oyster, would have formed a pearl somewhere in my sinuses. Valerie Ellis, a fellow Floridian survivor, says that she remembers it. They did him in Kendall. Okay, there you go. Always during the morning announcements with "There's music in the air." Valerie, do you remember one of those songs on... Oh, I went to the animal fair. See, Dave knows the name of that song. And who did you see at the zoo? Pulling out what little hair I have left at the thought of it. So we know now what that song was called. Now I know what this other song was called. The chorus was tra-la-lee, tra-la-la, tra-la-lee, tra-la-la-la-la, ha-ha-ha, tra-la-lee, tra-la-la. I'll never forget it. As much as I try, I'll never forget it. But now I know, thanks to my fixation with Tiny Tim, the name of that song is The Happy Wanderer. Yes, The Happy Wanderer. I played it once, and just because of the very deep-rooted psychic scarring that I suffered because of, you notice I'm getting choked up, because of "There's music on the air." I'm actually trying not to sneeze is what's going on. Because of the deep-rooted psychological damage, I will never listen to Tiny Tim doing The Happy Wanderer ever again. Ain't gonna do it. But the B-side, my nose always gets in the way. That's better. I can handle that. And notice it's on Polydor Records. This is I think it's either a German or a Belgian pressing on Polydor Records, which was a very, very large, very powerful European label. They never had a whole lot of presence in the U.S., but they were a big deal in Europe. And so Tiny Tim, even after Tiptoe Through the Tulips, was always able to squeeze out some kind of a record deal and get some kind of a record out and just keep his career going, usually against all odds. Speaking of against all odds, we have somebody here who has not made an appearance on Tent Talks Tunes in weeks. And even now he's being a little bit shy. He's looking up at me with those big yellow eyes of his, but he ain't jumping up. Come on here, little guy. The people haven't seen you in weeks. Come on up. Oh, he's nuzzling, but he ain't jumping. All right, I'm going to give him a helping hand. Come here, little guy. It is the return of Harry the cat. Everybody say hi to Harry. We have not seen Harry in a while. And there he is. The yellow-eyed wonder himself. The crumpled ear superstar of Tent Talks Tunes. The scene stealer himself. Mr. Fang Face in person. The guy whose eyes match my shirt. Harry the cat. He loved getting his chin rubbed live here on Tent Talks Tunes. Oh, yes. So we're going to see how long Harry wants to hang out with us. It's been a while. I don't know why he's been so scarce lately. But almost always when I would start broadcasting, he would just rush right on in and make a beeline for the camera, being the attention hog that he is. But he's been scarce the past few weeks. But here he is. Welcome back to Harry. Hi. What a cutie. Who's going to pay attention to me when this guy's around? I'm not even paying attention to me. I digress. Here's a really weird one. Oh, there he goes. Later, dude. Later, dude. Tiny Tim was always able to squeeze out a record, but in the U.S., the labels got smaller and smaller and smaller, and the releases got more and more obscure, and weirder and weirder and weirder. Valerie, she's got a story about the Happy Wanderer. That's pretty cool. I never knew that's what the song was called. Valerie, Valera. I can hear it. This has nothing to do with Valerie. This has an extremely weird, even by Tiny Tim standards, 45 called I'm Gonna Be a Country Queen. Tiny Tim, I'm Gonna Be a Country Queen, which is a most likely apocryphal story about a Nashville country western guy who decides to become a drag queen rather than a country singer in an effort to be successful on the charts. Came out in I think the late 70s, if I'm not mistaken, maybe early 80s. It's the kind of topic that really wasn't going to make it at that time and place, let's just say. But as they say in the biz, God bless Tiny Tim, he tried. It's a good song, too. It's really good. And the B-side is, I Ain't No Cowboy, I Just Found This Hat. And any of you real hardcore music freaks, geeks, and nerds, like myself, might recognize the True record label. That was the record label that was run by a guy named Leon Everett. And Leon Everett's first and maybe biggest hit was a tribute to Elvis. After Elvis died, there were millions and millions and millions of Elvis tribute records. Speaking of Elvis, we got the 21st century Elvis tuned in. Elvis Irwin. Hello, Elvis. Elvis, one of the many stars of this past Rule Breakers Ball. Elvis being the co-leader of the new Lean Mean Machine, the power trio version of Rancid Vat. Yes. I'll go on record right now as saying there's not a single lineup of Rancid Vat that I don't love, but the current power trio configuration, aces. A trio, by the very nature of its formation, forms a wedge. And the power trio, Rancid Vat, just inserted themselves into the audience and wouldn't take no for an answer. Way cool. Good to see you, Elvis, however virtually it may be. So yeah, Tiny Tim, I guess he was ahead of his curve, ahead of the curve. He wanted to be a country queen in 1979. Might have worked in 2025. Who knows? And of course, I got myself a Tiny Tim CD. One of his early 90s recordings. I don't know anything about it. Haven't heard it yet, but I'm on the verge of being a completist. So I had to get it. That's what I got myself for my birthday. Now, I told you all about the upcoming record show in Gastonia this weekend, Saturday, 10 a.m. at the Gastonia Conference Center. I will be setting up 2 tables of records. But a few weeks ago, I went to a record show in Asheville, North Carolina, and picked up a few things, and I love sharing my scores. Found this one. This is a record I've been looking for a long time. Oh yes, a long time. And I didn't even know that this song came out as a 45 RPM single. I thought it was merely a deep album cut of some sort, because I'd never seen it on 45. It's a song that I heard on a quasi-official, semi-legit compilation called Desperate Rock and Roll. And I am an absolute devotee of this series, Desperate Rock and Roll. It features just the craziest, most unhinged, over-the-top 50s and early 60s rock and roll you've ever heard. Never mind, I don't even know the names of like mainstream rockabilly types of dudes. Never mind, I just don't know. I don't know. These are all like legit, authentic backwoods, not even one-hit wonders, no-hit wonders. Maybe sold 5 records ever at the local gas station. But stuff made by people who sounds like they are losing their minds. People who are performing these songs as if their very lives depended on delivering the most over-the-top, unhinged take imaginable. I love this stuff. And so, on one of these compilations, there was a song called I Think I'm Gonna Kill Myself. I think I'm gonna kill myself. And I had a cassette tape of it. It was just a tape I had made or gotten from somebody that was one of those desperate rock and rolls, but didn't have any of the artists listed or proper song titles. Dave Stennett says, Singing Jimmy Drake, a.k.a. Nervous Norvis. I would say that singing Jimmy Drake probably qualifies as desperate rock and roll, because his stuff was definitely not normal, not safe, and probably quite desperate. Oh, yes. Elvis Irwin, as a side note, says his favorite Tiny Tim song is his version of Secret Agent Man. I never heard that. Sounds like something I gotta hear. Put it on the very long list of Tiny Tim songs that need to be heard. Secret Agent Man. Wow. Anyway, it wasn't until years later that I finally learned that the song, I think I'm gonna kill myself. I think I'm gonna kill myself. Dig my grave with a silver spade and, you know, whatever. Was by Buddy Knox. Buddy Knox of Party Doll fame. I guess you could call Buddy Knox a one-hit wonder, but that was his big hit, Party Doll. So, all right, who would have thought? Buddy Knox did a song with a little bit of edge to it. And I was just, you know, plowing through the boxes of 45's, James Rowe, maybe you know what I'm talking about, plowing through the boxes of 45's, just looking for something that I really needed to have, and I saw the Telltale Roulette label, which was the label that Buddy Knox recorded for. And I saw the A-side was a song called To Be With You by Buddy Knox. Flipped it over, and whoa, there it was. I think I'm gonna kill myself. Yeah. Send my remains to my best friend and the rest to a hole in the ground. The rest to a hole in the ground. It's pretty dark stuff for 1958. Is that the year we're looking at here? 58. Great tune. Think I'm Gonna Kill Myself by Buddy Knox. And just happened to find it on a 45 RPM, which means the best of all possible worlds. An unhinged song with crazed lyrics on a classic label on a 45 RPM single. There's not much more to ask for. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yeah, James Rowe, if you're referring to the Desperate Rock and Roll series, there's, I don't know how many volumes of these things that there are. There's probably more than 20 at this point. Everyone that I've ever heard is a killer. I don't have every single one of them, but they all have at least a handful of absolutely essential tracks. And I would venture to say 90% of them have never been officially reissued anywhere. So absolutely critical stuff. Another 45 I found while digging through a mystery box of records was something I did not know existed. Now, I'm a big fan, as you guys know, of fringe types, genuine originals, outsiders, unique performers who think and act outside the box. I have very little patience for regular, mainstream, top 40, commercial, corporate music of any sort. It's boring. Of course, unless you're talking about the golden era that I grew up in, I'm just saying. I like music with an edge. I like music with grit. I like music with dirt under the nails. I like music with a little bit of grease in its hair. I like music that is not acceptable, not accepted. And I like music by guys like Sky Sunlight Saxon. Yes, Sky Saxon of the Seeds, who after his career in the Seeds had a bit of a religious epiphany, changed his name to Sunlight, joined the Father Yod religious cult, and continued to make music, the vast majority of which is pretty damned unhinged. And there are several albums put out by Sky Sunlight Saxon. They're all highly recommended. On one of them, Red Cross is the backing band, but that's not even the best one. I was aware of the albums, but he actually had a 45. On what label is this? Expression Records. Beautiful Stars on the A side. Universal Stars on the B side. By Sky Sunlight and the New Seeds. Featuring Rainbow. All right. Catalog number is EXP 777. It's produced by Sunlight for White Sun Sounds. And the executive producer is a guy named Flashlight. Looks very promising. I haven't heard this yet, but based on the albums that I have in the old collection and all of the cryptic clues provided on the label, I can't see how it would not be a killer. If not a thriller and or a chiller. Oh yeah. Sky Sunlight Saxon on 45. A proud acquisition to the personal collection of Malcolm Tent, your host here on Tent Talks Tunes. Tiny Tim wants to, Mike Lesser wants to know if Tiny Tim ever had a variety show. He did not. He did not. He was a guest on many, many shows, but never actually hosted his own show. In fact, there was a time, excuse me, when a children's show was put into production that Tiny Tim was going to host. I mean, it's kind of a natural, right? Tiny Tim is the host of a children's show, but he was afraid of children. He was genuinely freaked out by the children. He couldn't handle it, so it never happened. So if he was freaked out and frightened by children, you can only imagine what a room full of adults would have done to him. Oh boy, poor guy. Wherever you are, Tiny, I hoist my jug of hickory tap to you and take a swig. The last little item I helped myself to at the record show was a CD version of an album that got a lot, and I do mean a lot, of turntable time when I was a kid. Me and my brothers just about wore our copy of This Is Live. This is the way it happens on live television. Let's Get Small by Steve Martin. Oh yes. We played this record over and over and over and over and over again. And then when his follow-up album called A Wild and Crazy Guy came out, we played it over and over and over and over and over and over again. We loved Steve Martin. As far as we could tell, like in 1977, I was 13 going on 14. This was the funniest album ever made in the entire history of mankind. And we listened to a lot of comedy records. We listened to Cheech and Chong. We listened to Martin Mull. Forget who else we might have had around the house. But there were comedy records for sure. Cheech and Chong were definitely close seconds to Steve Martin. But Steve Martin was the man. And so I saw this in the dollar bin at the record show, and I was like, wow, I haven't played this album, excuse me, probably since about 1977. I wonder if it's still funny. I wonder if the 61-year-old me is going to think it's as funny as the 13-ish-year-old me thought it was. Haven't played it yet. I'm gonna, and I promise you guys that upon doing so, I will compile a full report and check back in with you at a future episode of Tent Talks Tunes and let you know if Steve Martin is still funny after all these years. Mike Lesser says Richard Pryor. I don't think we were allowed to listen to Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor was a little too spicy for our somewhat vanilla household. I think I might have been afraid to listen to Richard Pryor. I mean, he was addressing issues that I had no conception of whatsoever. I'm honestly trying to remember who else we listened to. Steve Martin, Cheech and Chong, Martin Mull. We had the K-Tel compilation Looney Tunes, which had They're Coming to Take Me Away, haha, and, Ray Stevens and people like that. Maybe that was all. Let's see, George Carlin, kind of the same deal. George Carlin was a little bit too adult. Remember, I was 13, my next youngest brother was 12, and my next youngest brother after that was 8. So we're talking about little kids here. You don't want to be playing them George Carlin and Richard Pryor. But Steve Martin, Cheech and Chong, no problem. Even some of the Cheech and Chong was a little bit borderline, but the damage is done. As Mike Lester says, yes, Dad's discs. Exactly. My father had a real good record collection. I give the old man credit for having pretty good taste in music and comedy. So, yeah, we listened to what he had. And, of course, King Tut was a giant-sized hit right around this time. I went out and bought the King Tut 45, and that might have triggered the whole Steve Martin summer of 77 for us. So, there you go. Is it still funny? I'll let you know. Totally let you guys know. Anyway, I just went through my entire pile of stuff to show and tell. So I'm just going to remind you guys that Tent Talks Tunes is brought to you by me. Through the products of the sweat of my brow and the fruits of my labor, I'm able to keep my ship afloat and bring you Tent Talks Tunes every Wednesday-ish, 7 o'clock p.m.-ish on the Facebook. And I've got another brand new release I want to tell you about. This is back from the pressing plant. The first ever repressing of the Reverend Jim Jones and the People's Temple Choir He's Able album. It's been out of print since 1973, and we all know what happened to the People's Temple. Well, they made an album, a gospel album, and it's pretty good. It's legit good. The only thing that's unsettling is that every single song on it is about this guy right here, Reverend Jim Jones. They only name check Jesus Christ once on this album. That's the song that Jim Jones himself sings. And it's quite apparent that he's singing about himself. Okay, so that's where it starts to get a little bit weird. Just a little bit. But it's an album, it's historical, it's culturally important, it's musically valid, and it is out now on my fabulous label, TPOS. Check it out on Discogs, eBay, and or Bandcamp. And that is today's final commercial message before I sign out. And I'm going to sign out right now. I'm signing out. Signing out right now. Elvis Erdwin says, National Lampoon records? We never got into National Lampoon. I don't know why. They used to play a lot of National Lampoon on the local FM station, WSHE. And I didn't get it. I didn't get where they were coming from. I know they were doing mostly satires on old radio shows. I didn't get it. It just didn't make any sense to me, so I never went out and bought any National Lampoon records, or National Lampoon magazine for that matter. I bought Mad Magazine every week. I bought Cracked every month or week or whenever it came out. Every issue of Mad I bought. Every issue of Cracked I bought. If I was really desperate, I would buy an issue of Crazy or Sick. But that was real bottom of the barrel. Ah, that's right, Firesign Theater. Thank you. Firesign Theater is what I'm thinking of. National Lampoon just kind of was not part of the wheelhouse. I don't know why. But yeah, Fireside Theater would get played, and I just didn't get what they were doing with the old radio show parodies. National Lampoon, as far as I ever got, was reading their takeoff on Lord of the Rings, entitled Bored of the Rings. And that book was funny. That was real funny. That definitely had some adult humor that I may or may not have been ready for, but it was funny. It was real funny. I've read Lord of the Rings probably 4 times now from start to finish. And Bored of the Rings was hilarious. The bit where somebody receives a gift of a pear, a diamond-shaped pear, and a clover's egg the size of a ruby or something like that. I love that. Very clever use of language. So there you go. But really, when you get down to it, Steve Martin. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. It's always a pleasure to wax rhapsodic and go blah, 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 blah with you guys every Wednesday at 7 p.m.-ish on the Facebook. Once again, invite you guys to check out my website, malcolmtent.net, my YouTube channel, Discogs, eBay, Bandcamp, blah, 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 yak, 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 yak. And great times at the Rule Breakers Ball. If you were there, you know. If you weren't there, you're regretting it already. That's all I have to say on the matter. So I do hope to be back in about 167 hours' time. Until we meet again, this is Malcolm Tent saying so long from the Tar Heel State.